We've come a long way. I started this channel solely for the purpose of documenting my Firewood processor build. When I decided to build a processor, there were not many start to finish videos to be found. I looked at a lot of processors on the internet, gathered all the ideas I could come up with, and brought you along for the journey. Today, as I edit this video, the channel has exceeded 1,000 subscribers. I'm excited about the support and the opportunity to grow the channel beyond one Firewood processor build. I have plans going forward, so continue to like and subscribe, and I'll do my best to bring you informative content. Thank you very much. Left off the last video cutting out these strips. These are the wear guides for the chain. I needed a groove down the center of them, the width of the chain, so I set up a dado stack, made sure I had it set right, and then tried to cut them out with it. It didn't work. Luckily I wasn't hurt. So I set up my router table, just used a rabbiting bit. Not fun to do, but got them bored out. And then these get mounted on top of these C channels. Just mounting them in with, they were 1/4 inch Torx head screws. After I broke some bits, drilled the holes the wrong size, I got all these mounted. Here's the second broken driver. Luckily I only broke the tip off of it, so it was still working, and it actually didn't break after that, so it worked out. The chain I'm using for the log feed is 2060. There's a drive sprocket at the drive shaft, and then there'll be an idler sprocket out at the end of the arm. These plates will get welded on the arms, they'll hold the legs, and then they also hold the idler sprocket. Trying to come up with how I'm going to tension the chains. This is just a piece of C channel that I cut in half. So So it basically gives me L brackets, and I use 4 of these for each leg with a bolt in between, and then I could tighten them up that way. Either back them off, tighten them up, and lock them down so they stay in place. This was the first arm I built, and I didn't think to bolt my leg into those plates prior to putting them on and welding them, and I got a little crooked. It didn't cause too big of an issue once it's all said and done, but all the other legs I put together, I actually bolted the plates to the legs prior to welding them to the arms, so everything was square and straight. This piece will make more sense later down the line in the build, but it's basically will be the log stops, but I can also put a ramped deck off of that if I wanted to down the road to get more wood on. I don't know that I'll ever need to, but I at least have that option. I'm using a 3/8 carriage bolt for my adjuster. The head of the carriage bolt is getting welded into the piece at the axle, and then there's a nut on either side of the piece that's welded to the arm, and just by turning those nuts one way or another, it'll adjust it either tighter or looser, and then the opposite nut will just jam against it to hold it in place. The drive chain is the number 60 chain I had left over from the in-feed sprocket setup. So I just bought more number 60 sprockets for my other hydraulic motor, and then the actual drive sprocket on the drive shaft. I didn't realize it when I mounted the motor, but I actually split a link, so I ended up having to take it back off and move the bracket. So I was basically half a link off and wouldn't have been able to put the chain together and actually get tension on it. So I had to cut this bracket back off and re-weld it in the right position. I couldn't, even with the sprocket on, I couldn't turn this motor by hand, so I thought something was messed up in it. I was completely wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine. But why not tear something apart? I skipped over to working on the legs because I didn't have the right master link for the chain. I got these little feet online. They're probably going to end up being too small, but I can always mount some boards or something to the bottom of them. I think I might have to anyways, just to keep them from sinking in the ground. But So the leg will basically be adjustable. I don't know that the one jam bolt I put in it's actually going to hold the weight if I need to adjust them. So I'll probably carry a bunch of extra boards around and could always shim them up if it's uneven ground. With one arm complete, I could just build the rest of them with the processor back in the garage and just build the arms in the pole barn. Plenty of room to work. I already knew what I needed to do, so it was pretty simple from there just to build the rest out. I had this part of the project pretty much done before Christmas. And my plan, I was off between Christmas and New Year's, was to just cut wood and show you guys that. That didn't work out. The weather was terrible. It rained pretty much the whole week in between Christmas and New Year's. And then we got snow and more rain on top of that. So it just never worked out to get out there and cut. So my dad came down. I had to do a couple welds on it. So I decided to drag it out and we'd at least run one log through it and see how it worked out. Here basically you'll see how I have to unfold them. It's definitely a lot of work, but it's not something I'm going to be doing non-stop, so I wasn't too worried about it. I mean, it's a pain, but I just do it when I set up and put them back up when I take it down. So I think I can live with it for now. I will probably try to figure out something that makes it a lot easier, but it'll work for now. As long as both of us are there, it's not too bad.
Eventually it'll get easier.
There you can see the log stops at the end of the arms. So they're 1.5 square tubing, and they slide down into 2-inch square tubing that are welded in between the brackets, and then there's a pin to release them. It might be all that's ever in there, but like I said, at least I give myself the option if I need to add something on there. We're not in the most ideal location. This is in my driveway and it slopes downhill. So even though I'm not really happy with how this worked out, I think it's not a good test of it. I really need to get it over to where my wood pile is and try it out. Plus, this was a ash tree that fell pretty recently, and there was a branch sticking out the far end, and you'll see it actually gets caught and pulls the log crooked. And I did end up having to cut that off, but I never straightened the log back out, so it didn't feed onto the deck quite right. But I live with it. I think it worked fairly well. I mean, the true test would be getting a bunch of logs up there and actually seeing how it works. I think with that already running crooked is why I didn't want to go up on the deck. Probably should have squared it up against the stocks and then fed it on that way. Like I said, with it kind of sloping downhill, the log wasn't really pulling up as well as it should have, but like I said, the only way I'm really going to know how this thing's going to work is to get it over to my buddy's property where all my logs are and just try it out. And more than likely that's what the next video will be, at least on the processor itself. I'll try to get it over there when the ground's dry enough and it's not a big mud hole. I've got a decent pile of logs over there. I don't even know if I can get them all cut up in one day just with the amount that's over there, but at that point you'll be able to see the whole setup with the elevator and everything, and I'm interested to see how fast I can go through some wood now that I can load up the live deck. I won't be having to stop and start as many times to, where I was only doing 2 logs at one time. I can actually do 6 or more logs depending on their diameter at a time, and that should speed things up. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Like I said, thanks again for getting us to 1,000 subscribers. I'm gonna try to make the content better. Try to work on some things that are a little iffy with how I did things. Maybe try to pay more attention to what I'm filming so that it's a little more informative, and see if we can do better. As always, if you have any critiques, any comments, please leave them below. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.